I would imagine that Blackbeard needs Lafitte to hypnotize Pudding to read the poneglyphs. Not sure if it would work or if Blackbeard can even read them to some extent on his own. That is a very good point. Obviously, even if she awakened her abilities, Charlotte Pudding was never going to willingly read the poneglyphs of Blackbeard. However, they don't really need her to because they have a hypnotist on the crew. This is very easy to forget because it is such a brief line, but Lafitte was a major factor in the Paramount War because he hypnotized the Marine Guards into opening the gates of justice, which allowed the Blackbeard pirates to access the battlefield, kill Whitebeard, and go on to change the world into the one we currently live in. This is something that I frequently forget about, but of course that is why Blackbeard is so confident with Pudding. All he needs is the mechanism to read the poneglyphs. He doesn't need consent to read them. Lafitte can handle the rest. And while we're on this topic, I've just thought of the potential idea that Lafitte may have hypnotized everyone at the Warlord meeting at Marijois, and that may be how Blackbeard was given the Warlord position. Because sure, Blackbeard, he proves himself by capturing Ace, but Marshal D. Teach himself at the time was a complete no-name with no bounty at all. Exactly the not what we want of a Warlord. So why would you give the position to him? Unless maybe the idea was incepted into your mind brain by a hypnotist. And so now that Lafitte is in Umit Shipyard, he could be hypnotizing any number of people to be doing any number of things, which I'm sure is the exact brand of frustratingly vague insight that you all come to this channel for. But it's true, he could be hypnotizing people to take ships and cargo back to Hachinosu, but he could also be planting Blackbeard's sleeper agents, ones that are going to sail all throughout the world and activate when Lafitte triggers them. Possibilities with his power are quite endless. Moria officially escaped. I feel like that got missed and will actually be important in the future. Mate, it is definitely going to be important. Moria and Perona escaped from Hachinosu off screen, and look, as for what they do next, I think that this may have been accidentally spoiled by Oda. In the recent batch of Vivia cards, Buggy's card contains Oda's original sketch of Cross Guild, and while a lot of it is a scribbly mess, one thing that we can very clearly make out is that Perona was supposed to be part of it, which makes sense because she could have tagged along with Mihawk, but that may still be the plan. I mean, where else do Moria and Perona have to go? Given Perona's relationship with Mihawk, she would see him as the best path to safety, and so Gecko Moria could end up joining Cross Guild, which would be massive as that would make 4 former Warlords of the Sea combining their powers and maybe even setting up for more former Warlords to join. Remembering that all Warlords are now former Warlords, and they all need somewhere to go. And what I would love most about Moria joining is that it would almost turn Cross Guild into a support group for Warlords who have been beaten by Luffy, because Moria would be joining good friends Crocodile and Buggy. And really, these three have so much in common that I've convinced myself that I really need to see this alliance happen now. And hey, maybe Perona could make some of her trademark cat sangria, and Cross Guild can have their own hangover arc alongside the Straw Hats currently on Elbaf. Although apparently during her time on Kuregana Island, Mihawk did most of the actual cooking, and while everyone thinks that Mihawk is set to face Zoro at the end of the series, this could also be setting up for a potential battle with Sanji. I love cooking. No, wait, the other one. I'm not a big fan of cooking because it takes me away from the thing that I love most, which is talking about fictional pirates on the internet, which means that I don't have time for this, or whatever this is, and neither do most of you. Which is why I've been taking the stress out of meal planning, meal preparing, and other assorted P-wordsing with Factor. Chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and vegetarian, and more. Now look, most men don't like to brag about this, but I can get the job done in 2 minutes flat. That's right, be envious because that's all it takes to cook these meals, just 2 minutes in the microwave, and there is a chef-prepared meal ready and waiting for your consumptive pleasures. And then it's back to doing what you love best. Whether it's talking about fictional pirates on the internet, or complaining in the comments of people who talk about fictional pirates on the internet. Either way, time is the most valuable commodity that you have on this planet, so don't waste it doing something you don't love. Instead, head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code GLR50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code GLR50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. And thanks so much to Factor, because it's sponsors like them that allow us to bring you the best fictional pirate content possible as often as possible. So definitely give it a go, but for now it's back to you, me. Barto Club will rise again. The Going Luffy was destroyed, but the 1,000 Nika is just on the horizon. Exactly. What happened here is the Bato Club equivalent of what happened to the Straw Hats on Sabadi. They were separated by Kuma, then they did a bit of a time skip, and they returned different, very different. And the Going Luffy Senpai, as phenomenal of a vessel as it was still stuck in the pre-time skip era. For the Bato Club to evolve, I think they need a new vessel which reflects Luffy currently. And if anything, this is a huge opportunity to command the global Luffy fandom with a Gear 5th inspired figurehead. I really wanted to see Bartolomeo fight though. Not because I'm desperate for more punch-fighty action on screen, but because I just wanted to see more of his creative homage moves. And come to think of it, I also would have loved to see his reaction to Jinbei joining the crew. That would have been massive news, and I do feel a bit robbed that I wasn't able to geek out with Bartolomeo about that. In the end, Bartolomeo is a criminally underutilized character, and I do say this about a lot of characters, but I would willingly follow an entire manga series about One Piece just from Bartolomeo's perspective. I'm convinced Oda is on a shadow campaign to slowly take out all memorable pirate ships so that he has less to draw when the final war begins. Maybe it's a request from his assistants to lessen their inevitable workload during the final war, because I highly doubt that Oda does a lot of the pirate ship drawing himself these days. He does design them, of course, but they are too detailed and too intricate, and that's the kind of work that assistants are paid to do. Now that she is reunited with her dad, Bonnie isn't using her power to be grown up anymore. She got her childhood back. That is a very sweet way of putting it. Bonnie no longer feels like she needs to overcompensate and be an adult because she feels safe with her father now. And not just him either, because the real travesty of my former video is that I missed this the first time around in the chapter, and I'm ever so annoyed because it is so adorable. But when half the crew disappeared, there is a panel of Bonnie holding on to Jinbei's Jinbei, because yes, the type of clothing he wears is also his name. But I love this panel because Jinbei is such a good crew dad, and Bonnie immediately recognizes him as the safest person to stand next to. Really, at this point, the crew have kind of adopted Bonnie. Through fateful circumstances, they've ended up with a child, like how the Roger Pirates ended up with Shanks and also probably Buggy. And I'm still really not sure where Bonnie goes from here. At the moment, she still seems like more of a Saga refugee than a Straw Hat, fulfilling more of a Kinemon role. But here's an idea. She could very potentially find a comfortable home on Elbaf. Now that she can activate a Nika future, Bonnie can actually become a giant and could fit in quite well with giant society, with the unfortunate exception of their winter solstice fasting period. Shanks casually destroying ships with his crew, especially now when the world is drowning, is indirectly evil. It's definitely a much harsher fate with what we know now than when Shanks did it to Kid. I'm not sure if I'd use the word evil though, because we've known what Shanks has been all about since chapter 1. When that bandit pointed a gun at him and Shanks said that, "Mate, guns are not for threatening." Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates are very no-nonsense. And what Bartolomeo did was effectively point a gun at Shanks' empire, and guns not for threatening. So I feel bad for Bartolomeo, but it's either Shanks destroys the Bato Club, or he puts every territory under his protection in danger. The Red Hair Pirates need that no-nonsense reputation more so than the other emperors, because the Red Hair Pirates deliberately claim and defend the weaker territories. It's not like Kaido claiming Wano, because good luck getting there, and I wish you even more luck trying to deal with the insanely powerful locals, or even Big Mom claiming Fishman Island, because no, it's not the most powerful, but it's extremely hard to get to and much easier to defend as a result. But Shanks' islands are just basic, easy to reach pirate farms. Wide open territory ready to be taken by any minor New World crew. So he really needs that reputation to protect them. His Jolly Roger practically needs to exude its own haki. And given that haki can apparently be imbued into knots and stuff, it's not out of the question to think that Jolly Rogers could have that installed into them as well. So I've also been thinking about the poison, and in a twisted way, this could have been Shanks offering Bartolomeo mercy, giving him a way out while saving face, but also not hurting Luffy because the poison was fake. But then Bartolomeo eagerly drank it, and after that happened, everyone knew, alright, I guess we just got to blow these boys up, and we've done everything we can. You'd think Nami would be a tad more put off by passing out drunk, than waking up having been disrobed and had someone else's clothes shoved onto her. I'm not actually sure that Nami realizes that she's dressed differently just yet. She's only just woken up, and the giant Lego is commanding most of her attention at the moment, understandably so. Something that concerns me a bit more is that Nami has an extremely high alcohol tolerance, and in fact she was identified by Oda as the third strongest drinker of the crew, behind Zoro in second place and Jinbei in first place. Insert your own drink like a fish joke here, I am too lazy to do it for you. But all three of them completely blacked out. At least we assume they blacked out, we don't know about Zoro yet. And it's not just them, but the giants, who would assumedly have an even higher tolerance to this absinthe, they blacked out as well. And at this stage I'm thinking that even though it was flagged that the absinthe can cause hallucinations, that someone may have spiked everyone's drinks with something else, and that this is all part part of some weird plan, perhaps by Loki or a Loki loyalist? Because the key thing at the moment is that no one has hallucinated. They blacked out, which is very different. Although someone could be hallucinating. While a Lego room does make sense if Nami is stuck within the toy house of some sort of giant child, it could be equally as possible that she's hallucinating the Lego room as well as her outfit. I don't know if it's very likely, but what we do have is Chekhov's hallucination juice. You can't mention that the drink has this effect and then not show the effect. But another reason why I think there's something else happening here is because I doubt that Bonnie was also drinking the absinthe and blacked out. She was with Kuma when everyone else was partying, and whilst underage drinking has never really been a taboo in One Piece, I do still have my doubts that a 12-year-old was sculling absinthe. So whatever's happening here may not have been the drink at all. It could have been some other power, and everyone else is now conveniently blaming the absinthe. And spiking the absinthe could be a nice callback to what happened during Little Garden, when Baroque Works sabotaged the alcohol given to Dory. So maybe after this, the giant should just learn a bit of a lesson to not drink whenever the Straw Hats are around. Bad things happen. I think Loki has taken the Straw Hats because he became infatuated with Nami's wanted poster. And to win her over, he built her a castle out of Lego blocks. It's a nice way to combine the Loki, Lola, and Nami connections. It's not impossible, but I will say that I really hope this isn't the case. Because we've already played out a very similar scenario on Thriller Bark, which was also connected to Lola. So I guess this could be a way to bring in that love triangle. Actually, it's not a love triangle, more of a square, right? Loki loved Lola, Lola's zombie, loved Absalom, Absalom loved Nami, and Nami doesn't want anything to do with any of this, so it is a very misshapen love square. Again, I really hope not though, because the Nami infatuation plot is a bit too played out in One Piece, not just during Thriller Bark, but Movie 2 was also based on Nami infatuation, and it was even a major plot point of one of the stage shows. And also, we've already got a similar thing going on with Emu and Vivi, so I'm not hugely keen to dive into another one. I was also going to say that if Loki did want to do that, then Nami would be in a wedding dress, but then again, who knows what the people of Warland wear to their formal occasions? Probably battle gear. And part of me also wants to believe that Loki isn't an Absalom-like character, and that he genuinely saw something in Lola, and isn't just trying to marry every woman he comes across. Quick question. What was the time gap between Shanks nuking Kid and the Red Hair Pirates destroying Barto's group? In universe, of course. So as far as the known timeline goes, there has only been 1 day between these events. Egghead Island took place across 2 days, with the Straw Hats arriving and dealing with York on the first night, and then on day 2, the siege and the Egghead incident took place. Whilst this was happening, Shanks beat Eustace Kid on Elbaf during day 1, and has now dealt with Bartolomeo on day 2. I have to say, I'm a bit surprised that it's taken Shanks this long to get around to Bartolomeo though, because Barto attacked his territory a month ago, so what was Shanks doing this entire time? A month is a very long time. What we also know is that Shanks sailed past Wano on March 24th, because it was stated to be 7 days after the raid on Onigashima, which we know is March 17th, and that's when the Red Hair Pirates decided to deal with Bartolomeo, but that was at least 2 weeks ago now. So again, what took the Red Hair Pirates such a very long time to liberate their island from Bartolomeo's grasp? And also, what was Bartolomeo still doing on the island? Had he just been squatting there for a month? I would have thought that he'd moved on to be a bit of a prick elsewhere. Why is it that everyone thought Barto was on the ship? It was his crew that got blown away, hence why Barto said they just left us behind. Right, so I've seen this comment a lot, and for some reason there's a misconception with this chapter. Some people swear to me that Bartolomeo was not on the ship when he was blown up, but he definitely was. I think the confusion comes from the line, wow, they just left us be, with some people interpreting that as the Barto Club abandoning Bartolomeo, but it's referring to the Red Hair Pirates allowing the whole crew to leave, aka letting them all be. And also, I don't know how people miss this, but the speech bubble that's saying all of the speech is coming from the ship, so Bartolomeo was definitely on board. Did Yamato always carry a sword with the Kanabo, or am I oblivious? It is the second one. But you're definitely not the only one. A lot of people have forgotten about this sword. But this was given to Yamato earlier in the cover story by Kinemon. This sword belonged to Yasu, and Yamato's whole pilgrimage right now is leading to a shrine in Hakamai in order to lay this sword to rest. The shrine itself is actually called the Enma Shrine. Not so much in reference to the blade Enma, but Enma in general, the king of the underworld. So it seems like this might be an important ritual in having Yasu judged by Enma to present an offering to the shrine. I'm not entirely sure, but the whole idea is that this pilgrimage needs to be completed on behalf of Yasu, so that's why Yamato has this sword, and it might even get stolen at some point during the cover story to turn that into a bit of a subplot to deal with as well. I am so tired of arcs starting with a crew split up. I guess it has been about 27 years of that now. And it's really difficult to think of an arc off the top of my head where the crew don't immediately split up. They're quite rare. At the moment, I can only think of Syrup Village and Long Ring Longland. But then again, splitting up the crew is part of the core fabric of One Piece. In fact, splitting the crew up at the beginning of an arc dates all the way back to Orangetown. At the start here, Luffy and Zoro got separated by a big old bird. So the Straw Hats were being separated for arcs ever since the crew achieved the bare minimum number of members to constitute the meaning of the word separation. I do think it's more noticeable post-time skip, mainly because we so rarely get any moments with the entire crew together anymore. But splitting them up is almost essential. Especially this late in the game, it is so difficult to create drama with an Emperor of the Sea and his full force. These guys just beat the Beast Pirates. They just survived the 5 Elders, a Marine Admiral, and a Buster Call. So to create any kind of interesting drama in the story, you need to nerf them somehow. Otherwise, they would just plow through any challenges presented. Because this crew, they work so well as a cohesive unit. Each of them is flawed in a very, very specific way, but another crew member has the skill to make up for that flaw. The basic example would be Zoro lacking a sense of direction. But when he's with the rest of the crew, that is overcome because someone else can guide him. Meaning that to create drama involving Zoro, the most effective thing you can do is separate him from the crew. Because sure, he can beat anything that comes his way, but he cannot ever defeat the greater concept of navigation. Same sort of thing with Luffy. He lacks a general sense of awareness. So even though at this point of the story he is practically a god, he can still be very easily tricked and taken in without his crew around him. And also, it's just really difficult to write scenes where you have 10 protagonists all standing in the same area, each needing to give their own input and their own reactions to whatever's happening, and it would become boringly linear. Because if this was the case, then we would only get to explore one location at a time, instead of having different Straw Hat cells discovering different parts of these islands and meeting different people. We separate the crews so that they can all simultaneously discover different pieces of the story puzzle. And if we didn't, then we would have to go through and find those pieces one by one. And that would become very tiring. Like on Dressrosa, for example, Sanji found Viola, Luffy got involved in the Colosseum, Usopp and Robin discovered the Tontata tribe, Frankie met the Toy Soldier, etc. Everyone split up and they all found these pieces that eventually came together to tell a cohesive story. But now imagine what we would have to do if they didn't split up. We would have had to have the whole crew go and meet Viola, then the whole crew meets the Toy Soldier, and now the whole crew needs to discover the Tontata tribe, then the whole crew goes to the Colosseum, and we just have to keep doing that. And everything would feel so unbelievably slow, instead of playing out 4 or 5 different events in tandem. And the crew splitting up also gives us a chance to explore individual Straw Hat dynamics. Like how I'm quite excited to see the original 6 working together because that has never happened. We've always either had a Vivi or a Robin mixed in with this group. And I'm also hoping that this gives us a chance for the Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei team to shine in their own personal plot, because they're the 4 that usually get pushed most into the background during these sections. So for me personally, splitting up the crew gives us an exciting range of opportunities, and I cannot wait to see what becomes of them in the next chapter.